So we finished watching Casablanca. If you didn't attend the viewing sessions that I held over Zoom, and if you didn't let me know or get in touch with me to let me know you'd be having an issue watching the movie, then I'm assuming you watched it some other way. Uh, so anyway, I just want to kind of touch on some things with general themes and symbolism going on in Casablanca. And in general, go over the reasons why I really like this movie. So for starters, this is a movie. I've never seen another movie quite like this. This movie has a tone and an atmosphere and an environment that I've never seen another movie even come close to replicating. And I love how all these things interplay and interweave in this movie. While this movie is at its core a love story, it's a really unusual love story. We typically don't see love stories like this in stories anyway, and especially not in movies. I mean, it's a love story where the main couple that we focus on, they don't end up together. And it's a love story that has a love triangle that is actually kind of complicated. Like, Ilsa at least seems to truly care about and love both Rick and Victor. And unlike a lot of love story or love triangles you see in movies, in more recent movies and stories, there's not an obvious choice as to which one she should pick or who she should end up with. Like if you compare this to like the love triangle in something like Titanic, in Titanic, Jack is the obvious choice. Jack is like perfect, while Cal is just like an awful human being. Like the obvious choice is Jack. But with Casablanca, there is no obvious choice as to who Ilsa should end up with. And that weird nature of this love story is reflected in a lot of the theming and the symbolism as well. So, for example, one of your discussion questions it asks about the symbolism of spilling drinks. So here's your freebie answer. So there are two notable instances where somebody knocks over a drink in this movie, and they both happen within a couple minutes of each other. The first one happens within the flashback showing Rick and Ilsa's life in Paris. Basically, it takes place when it's the last time that Rick sees Ilsa in Paris, when they're making plans to leave the city together and get married. And right before the scene cuts, Ilsa knocks over a glass of champagne. And then the scene following it is Rick standing at the station in the rain when he gets the letter from Ilsa where she tells him she's not going with him. The second one happens at the end of the flashback sequence when Rick is drinking in the bar and he knocks over his glass of, I think it was bourbon or something. He knocks over whatever he was drinking. And then after that, Ilsa walks in. So both of these instances have a connotation of the end of something good, like the end of good times or the end of the fantasy or the dream. In the case of Rick in the bar, it's the literal end of his reflection back on when he was happy with Ilsa in Paris. Within the Paris sequence, her knocking the glass over in the flashback, that could also have this connotation of like it's the end of the dream of them being in love and being able to go away together. Just because life kind of got in the way. And that one especially has the added context of it being champagne. If you think about the context of champagne in our culture, people generally drink champagne at a celebration of some sort, like at weddings or like New Year's. But generally, champagne is drunk during celebrations. It has this really happy and good connotation to it. And Ilsa knocking that over kind of signals or signifies the end of this good and happy period in both of their lives when they get to be together in Paris. And as we kind of learn by the end of the movie, the end of their time together, period. That's really the only time they have when they get to be together. This notion of like love being temporary and the good times being temporary also is reflected in Rick and Ilsa's song as time goes by. It's a pretty ironic song for them, for their relationship, where at the surface level, the song is literally describing them. They will love each other forever. But the irony is they're going to do so without being together. And that, I think, adds this extra layer of irony to this love story and just the nature of their relationship together. The other major theme I want to talk about is that of cynicism versus idealism. As should have hopefully become apparent by watching the movie, there is this big conflict between cynics or generally pessimistic and negative people and idealists, those who have a more positive view of humanity and who have hope that things will get better. To me, the best example of this is the dichotomy between the foil characters of Rick and Victor, where Rick is the cynic. He's a pretty negative person. He's very pessimistic. He doesn't really hope for things to get better or expect that things will get better. And for the most part, he really only cares about himself, at least at the beginning of the movie. As time goes on, however, we start to see him change over the course of his character arc. Victor is the polar opposite. Victor is the idealist. He's pretty optimistic and he's realistic, but he's also hopeful that the future will get better, that the Nazis will be defeated. And because of that hope, he is willing to dedicate everything that he has to working towards that goal. And he's willing to be quite selfless and sacrifice a lot for not even the cause or the movement that he cares about, but also the people that he loves. Again, he was willing to stay behind in Casablanca and let Ilsa leave with Rick just to make sure she got away. So Victor is like the poster boy of idealism in this movie. And they're the most obvious example of that, but there are a lot of other different ways that theme comes into this movie. And it lends a degree of commentary to it that, one, in the historical context, again, this movie being made in World War II, that it gives this movie just a really unique context to the culture and the time it was made. And it also, in my view, kind of makes it a bit relevant, especially today, given the current dumpster fire that is 2020. I mean, like, in normal times, I'd be talking to you face to face. We'd be having this discussion face to face. And I think there's a lot of, I think within a lot of people, there is this conflict between cynicism and idealism even now. And it is kind of, I don't know if I'd say reassuring, but it is nice to know that that conflict has kind of happened at a number of times in human history in the past. So I'm interested to hear more about what you guys took from this movie and how you guys view it. And just have a nice weekend, and we'll get back to it on Monday.